Hello, I'm Dr. David Hornrbook, the Clinical Director of Education and Technology here at Keating Dental Arts in beautiful Irvine, California. As you know, we do our weekly podcast, and we're having so much fun with this. If you haven't heard them in the past, or this is your first experience, you can go to DentalUp, all one word, .xyz, and we have videos, podcasts, product reviews, blogs. We're having a lot of fun with this. You're in a special treat. This is our 11th podcast. A special treat today because I have Mr. Jack Hadley from My Social Practice, and thanks for being here.
Thanks for inviting me, David.
You know, Jack and I have known each other for, we decided, 10 plus years.
Yes.
We never like to admit that. That's when we were both 18, which is nice.
That's right.
And when I called him, I said, I got to have you on this podcast. And he said, okay, cool. And I said, is there any way you could do it on site? Because we have so much more fun face to face. And I appreciate you made a special trip, flew down from him. He's in Provo, Utah. Made a special trip to spend an hour with us.
Hey,
and
anytime you invite me to spend an hour with you, I'm on a plane.
Well,
so
thanks.
Anytime.
I appreciate that. You look sharp. You know, we talked about the coat and the. I feel underdressed. It's like
I didn't wear a tie.
I want a coat like that. I'll take off my tie for it. Maybe we should just switch halfway through.
Okay.
You know, when we first met, you were part of an organization called Some Media, which did marketing and websites and stuff for a lot of dental practices.
Mm-hmm.
And then I actually got involved with you
Yes.
in my clinical practice with Lava 7 a little bit. And I know you work with some of the most successful dental practices. And now you're into optometry, too, I saw from your website.
Yeah, we're doing a little bit of work with optometrists these days. Yep.
And the dental practice you work with, I mean, you can always tell, and you're involved with the Crown Council.
Yes.
And you can always say, well, you know, that person is doing well, they're doing the right things, they must be using Jack, which your new is My Social Practice. And
Right.
you can go to mysocialpractice.com.
That's correct.
Yeah, which I did this morning. I had a while back, and I kind of put it off, and then I did this morning when I had a little break before we met. That's an incredible site.
Oh, thanks.
Beautiful. Well, it should be, because that's what you do for a living,
We
right?
have fun with it.
But the blogs, they're so well done, and the video, and you know, he speaks internationally. And you know, this whole social media and the marketing, it's changed so much.
Yes,
you know, 5 years ago, you know, especially dentists my age, you know, they'd say, why would someone follow me on Facebook? Isn't that to, you know, ask someone if you should buy a watermelon or a cantaloupe, you know, in the grocery store, and it's kind of stupid for teenagers.
Yeah.
And today, the dentists are saying, how can I utilize these more efficiently, and how can I make sure that people follow me on Facebook? So let's talk a little bit about that trend and why you think that occurred.
Yeah, I think that, as you mentioned, when we started My Social Practice 5 or 6 years ago, I think that was, every time I had an opportunity to speak, that was the main thing I had to talk about, was just overcoming the perception that social media is a waste of time. How could a dental practice, come on, how could a dental practice ever use social media? And there were very few people that were using social media. If I were in a room with 100 doctors and asked how many of you had a Facebook page, maybe 10%.
Or it was personal only.
Or personal. They didn't know the difference between personal and business pages. But today, you know, I'm guessing that 75-80% of practices that have a Facebook page, they may not be super effective using it yet, but the vast majority are using social media in some way. And I think it's interesting your perception about what the questions are today, because I think that's exactly what practices and the doctors are asking today is, we're in social media now, we see the value, but how do we become effective? What do we do to actually use social media to grow our business, to get new patients? And those are the questions they're asking today.
Yeah, and we're going to talk a lot about that today because, you know, I have a very active Facebook page. You'd probably look at it and say you're not doing the job. But, you know, I think it's hard for a lot of dentists because they want to take control, or they have their dental assistant who has their personal party Facebook, what I call, and they say, oh, can you write some stuff? Can you write some stuff? And you know, they have a birthday party picture, and 3 months later they have, you know, they did a smile design on someone, and you know, you really need that, if not daily, weekly. You need some interaction, whether it be a blog or an article or whatever.
Yeah, I think the concept of consistency is probably one of the top 3 concepts for really being effective. And what typically happens is the doctor will assign someone to be the point person in the practice, the social media cheerleader, and that person will have some great ideas for the first week, and then they run out of ideas. And because their time is so limited, they'll sit down, they have 10 minutes to spare, and won't know what to publish or what to post. So I think consistency, I think knowing what kinds of content are best and which ones work the best and get the most likes, comments, and shares on social media is important. And also participation is really a big thing that practices really have to grasp. It's been easy in the past for practices to write a check to the Yellow Pages, write a check to the billboard, check to the direct mail guys, and then kind of forget about marketing.
Right.
But social media requires some participation to really
Right.
be effective.
And I think the average dentist says, I don't have time to write something. And
That's right.
that's something you provide.
Yeah, that was sort of the impetus for starting my social practice, was to not do it for practices, but to really provide the content they need on a daily, weekly, monthly, and quarterly basis to make them effective in just a very few minutes. And so we're pretty much a content provider. We don't
Okay.
do social media for the practice, really.
Okay, so you're providing content. So we would pull that, stick it on our Facebook or Twitter or
Yeah.
Instagram or. I mean, let's back up a little bit
Yeah.
because instantly I think Facebook and so we've got Facebook, a big one.
Yep.
We've got Twitter.
Twitter.
Okay,
Yes.
and is that good for a dental practice?
Yes, it can be. If
Okay.
if a practice kind of wraps their head around Twitter, it's a little bit different animal than Facebook. If a practice is only using Twitter as an auto post place, like to forward Facebook posts to Twitter,
Right.
it's not effective at all.
Okay.
But if they'll actually embrace it and have somebody own it, Twitter can be really powerful.
So what kind of things would go? You always see LeBron James and all these people are
Yeah.
either say intelligent things or stupid things, and it's all over SportsCenter. That's the only show I
Yeah.
watch. What things would a practice? If I came to you and I say, hey Jack, I need to start this Twitter account.
Yeah.
What kind of things should I be saying?
Yeah. Whenever I think about content, and our content team at My Social Practice thinks of it this way, is there are really 5 or 6 types of content that seem to do really well. And those are, first, content that engages people. It's not meant to sell. It's not meant to provide much value.
Mhm.
It's meant to get a smile or a
Right.
share or a chuckle. And so that kind of content does really well. And a lot of times that kind of content is content that's personalized by a photograph.
Right.
So you take a photo of a team member with a patient, say, hey, it was so great to see Sally today. That kind of engagement content does really well on social media. And the second one is really content that provides value. So if a practice, instead of thinking about how can we sell more dentistry, how can we talk about cosmetic dentistry or whatever, or Invisalign or whatever, in such a way that we sell more, if they'll take the audience perception and put in and come from their perspective,
Right.
and provide value in some way, even if it's not always related to dentistry,
Right.
that kind of content does
Like
well.
diet or menus, things like that.
And sometimes local things. So, I mean,
Okay.
a dentist, it's cool because they're such an integral part of a localized community. I
Right.
mean, it's not like a dentist here in Irvine is talking to future patients in New York or Wisconsin
Right.
or whatever. They're talking to people in this community.
Right.
And so having some social media content that revolves around things happening
Okay.
locally is interesting to people.
Okay.
And they'll appreciate
That could be
it and
sporting
follow.
events. Like here, maybe
Sporting
they talk
events.
about the A's or the Ducks last time they played hockey,
Yeah.
things like that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
The other kind of content that does really well is anything that shares the culture of the practice. And I know sometimes practices think to themselves, culture, like, I don't know what our culture is.
Yeah.
Every practice has a culture.
Right.
It's just sometimes you don't think about how to talk about it and
Right.
how to spread it. If you're doing some kind of charity work, maybe you're doing Smiles for Life
Right.
with the Crown Council. Maybe you're doing Toys for Tots around the holidays or a food drive. That kind of content does really, really well because people like doing business with people that they like and who do good things.
Right.
It's just human nature. So that kind of content does really well. And then finally, any kind of content that strengthens relationships between team members and patients.
Okay.
Because social media marketing, effective social media marketing, is really internal marketing, not external.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna. Yeah, I
it-
know you brought that on one of your blogs about is it internal, is it external? So
Yeah.
it would be internal.
Yeah, and for any small business, not just a dental practice, in the beginning it's hard to think about marketing that way because we've come up, especially guys our age,
Right.
have come up through the ranks of you sell. Marketing is advertising,
Right.
it's selling, it's buying billboard space, and it's all designed to talk to the masses and to bring in new patients. Social media marketing, on the other hand, that's effective is really focused on what I like to call your alpha audience, which is your patients. They're the people that already love you, who have come to you for years, who respect what you do. They're the keepers in your
Right.
practice. If you can talk to them and empower them and enable them to then spread the word among their trusted networks. That's what I mean by internal marketing.
Okay.
It has external benefits,
Right.
but it's not designed externally as a first strategy.
Okay.
So-
Okay. And those are the patients we want, right? I mean,
Yeah,
a good
absolutely.
patient telling their friend that we're good.
Absolutely.
So I have a Facebook page, and
Mhm.
I'm not sure if we have a Twitter or not. I better
That's
look
all
that.
right.
So Instagram.
Instagram is doing really, really well, and I'm sure a lot of our audience has personal Instagram pages, and maybe thinking, wait a minute, how could that work in a dental practice? Well, a lot of the same principles I just talked about work exactly the same way on Instagram. If you can talk about things happening in the community, then one of the nice things about Instagram is there's no filtering yet.
Yes.
Anyway, right? Maybe there will be someday, but right now, if you publish and people if they follow you on Instagram, they'll see your stuff. I mean, it'll be in their stream. It's not like Instagram is filtering what goes there and what doesn't.
Right, okay.
Someday it may.
Okay.
But because of that, it can be really effective. We have a lot of practices doing really well with Instagram.
Now, do you write content for that as well?
Yeah, we do. We do.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
So you don't publish. I would say,
No.
okay, I want to do it every week
Yeah.
based on your recommendations. And so I would grab content from you because I don't know what's important.
Right.
And I would then grab that and stick it in my
Yeah.
Instagram or Twitter.
Yeah, we actually have a tool called the MSP Publisher. And so content, we send a daily email to the practice. They can click on that. It takes them right into this publishing tool where all their accounts have already been hooked up.
Okay.
We pre-populate the information they need and then encourage them to personalize it. Take 1 or 2 minutes, modify it,
Right.
bring in a little personal touch, and then they can publish to all of those accounts from one place. So that saves them a lot of time. Some content is designed to just be published quickly. We encourage a practice at least once a week to take a little bit of extra time, carve out maybe 20 minutes, a half hour somewhere in the week
Right.
to really use maybe one of our blog templates and actually create a blog post.
Okay.
We make blogging really easy, and that's that kind of content that really does well in terms of helping with the SEO for the practice too.
Right. Yeah, and that's something most of us dentists have no idea what people are talking about.
Well, yeah, the thing about SEO, that term I think really sometimes confuses practices, but it's pretty simple today. It's not like you have to hire some mystical SEO guy in some dark room and pay him
You don't?
2,000 a month.
I think I'm doing that now.
But for the most part, as Google becomes smarter and smarter and the algorithms get more and more sophisticated, they're just looking for real, honest content.
Right.
And as long as your site is structured the right way, that it's responsive, it looks good on a cell phone, and the structure is such that Google can crawl it and find the information. If you're publishing good content there, a lot of the SEO battle is just that simple.
Okay.
And it didn't used to be that way.
Right.
It didn't used to, but it's changed a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we talked Facebook, obviously,
Mhm.
Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn.
I think LinkedIn can be a powerful tool for the doctor. So if the doctor is busy and has assigned someone in the practice to take care of things, oops, my phone went off.
No worry. No worry. Probably my Twitter.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Probably not, but it might be. Yeah.
I encourage the doctor to really have a built-out LinkedIn profile. And I like to compare... Let me turn this off.
No worries.
I like to compare
No
it to... I like to compare it to having... to being a member of the Kiwanis Club.
Okay.
Or being a member of the Chamber of Commerce. And those kinds of kind of higher level connections with other business people in the community can be really, really powerful for a practice
Okay.
On LinkedIn. Again, it's a localized strategy.
Yeah, well, it is kind of like Rotary Club or
It
Kiwanis
is.
or Optimus, and I know I have a LinkedIn. I hardly ever go on it, but it's just a bunch of dental friends,
Yeah.
or other people within the
Yeah.
industry, which really it really doesn't do me good in my
Right,
my
not
dental
for your
practice.
practice, no.
Yeah, so that's interesting.
Yeah, but if a doctor will concentrate on warming up to and connecting with people in the community, and LinkedIn's a great tool for doing that, for searching out people that are local. And also, what's neat about LinkedIn too is recently they've given people the ability to publish blog content on LinkedIn.
Okay.
And so we're finding that a lot of practices will take some of the blog content that we provide, do a little twist on it, and publish it to LinkedIn, and they get a lot of interaction actually on LinkedIn through these simple blog
Oh,
posts.
really? Interesting.
Yeah, it's something that's
Interesting.
fairly new actually.
Interesting. Huh.
Yeah.
You know, you mentioned the cell phone, and yours went off from all your LinkedIn contacts that are trying to get a hold of you. You know, I know a lot of websites. You know, when we redid our website, we struggle with, you know, look good on a computer. It sucked on a phone, and that was a big
Yeah.
deal. And the mobile phones and the smartphones, that's changed. I know what you do for a living, and
Yeah, it
also
has.
these website designers.
Yeah, and you know, early on, there was sort of a interim solution to making websites mobile friendly, and they were often called mobile websites. Since then, really, the trend is towards what are called responsive sites. So it's one website, not two. There's not a cell phone website and then your real
Okay.
website. What the new sites are being built as responsive sites, which means no matter what you're looking on an iPad, you're looking on a phone, you're looking on a desktop, that it responds to where it's being viewed.
Oh, okay.
And those are really the best kinds of sites right now. And Google loves those kind of sites because they load quickly,
Okay.
and they look good, and Google's interested in providing the best information they can, so they love those kind of
Okay.
sites. In
Good.
fact, you may be penalized as of a couple months ago when they had Mobilegeddon, I think it was called.
Oh, really?
When Google said, "Hey, if your site is not responsive or not
Right.
optimized to be seen on mobile, we may start penalizing your site." Actually,
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
It just fascinates me
Yeah.
how that Google has so much control. With
yeah,
that.
they do.
You know, it's kind of interesting with the blogs and you know, your site. And again, I looked over it and being able to personalize it, because I think a lot of dentists, and I know you address this, is they're afraid they're going to lose their brand, or they can't control their brand. If it's a
Yeah.
sophisticated office, you know, I consider my office,
Yeah.
it's an aesthetic, restorative, sophisticated. And if, you know, I've got a little thing that some company puts in, and it's a dinosaur, and you should use your floss, and you know, it's like, wait a minute, that's not my brand, right?
No.
And so it gives them the opportunity to take your information, or professional copywriters and people that are
Yeah.
researching, and they can customize that.
Yeah, and you know, when you mention the term branding, I think that's another topic that practices are really trying to wrap their head around, and it's because for decades we've talked about the brand of a practice and how important that is, and how, for the most part, up until the last few years, a practice can control their own brand, really through you know, great imagery and the right colors and a great logo and all those things that come to mind when you say branding.
Right.
The thing is, though, what social media, how that's changed branding, is that practices are no longer in 100% control of their brand.
Mm-hmm.
It's as much about what other people say,
Right.
talk about on social media, the reviews that they write. They control the brand as much as the practice does.
Mhm.
And so not being aware of that and not being concerned about that can really hurt your brand, no matter how beautiful your logo is or how
Right.
great your colors are. So that, combined with the experience they have in their practice. I always like to talk about the three corners of this triangle: who you actually are when somebody comes into your practice, what's
Right.
the experience they have, what you say you are, which is the branding that you control,
Right.
the things that you publish, how your site looks and that, and then what other people say,
Right.
which is reviews and social media, the things they say online. And if any of those three pieces are kind of out of whack, it can really affect the other
Right.
two. And I think practices really need to think in that kind of comprehensive way.
Yeah, and you know, I want to talk about reviews, because you know that, you know, I'm learning so much from you as I'm listening to this. You know, you look at Yelp, where a restaurant review or a hotel or a bed and breakfast,
Yeah.
it could be what the bed and breakfast think is absolutely incredible, and they get a couple of Yelp reviews, and they're a pretty bad bed and breakfast.
Yeah.
So you know, Yelp. So how does that play into it all? You know, I have people that come in and say, oh, you know, every patient that leaves, say, can you give us a Yelp review,
Yeah.
or you know, a Google. So let's talk a
Yeah.
little bit about the reviews and
Yeah.
how that can, because that is a third of the triangle that could it could dwarf
Absolutely.
the other two in a bad way or a good way.
It really
right?
can. And we could spend a whole hour talking about
Well, we're
Yelp.
gonna have you back.
Well, okay, good. But we won't talk about all of the opinions out there and all the pros and cons about Yelp. That's a whole other discussion. The bottom line is that Yelp is powerful. And Yelp comes up more and more in page one of search engine results than it ever has before. And so if a practice has got a bad feeling about Yelp because maybe they had a bad experience or whatever, they really need to get over that and recognize the importance of it. If you have a few bad reviews here and there, people are forgiving. People expect that you can't
Yeah.
please every human being every single time. The problem is if you only have maybe 5 or 6 Yelp reviews and 1 or 2 of them are bad, that's not a good reflection. But if you have 25 or 30 or 50 Yelp reviews and you have 2 or 3 unsatisfied people, hey, everybody understands that's just part of doing business.
Yeah.
So Yelp's an important part.
So would you
of the
recommend that
strategy.
we as a dental practice ask our patients to review us on Yelp?
Yes, I would.
Okay.
We actually have released a little product that has made it much easier to get Google and Yelp reviews, which are the hardest ones to really get,
Right.
inside the practice while the patient is still in the practice. There are lots of third-party review programs and solutions that send an email, a follow-up email after the patient leaves that says, would you mind reviewing us? And if it's a great review, then they get another email that says, would you now go log into Google and copy and paste? And the problem is that the success rate of getting people to do that is extremely low.
Yeah.
So we've actually released a little product that lets you ask somebody in the practice. It sends a link to their cell phone, and right there, when they touch the link, if they're willing to leave a review, they touch the link. The software looks at the person's phone and determines what apps they have on the phone, and then opens to your page, and they can just leave a review right there, right inside the practice, and it's immediately published so that you're not asking them to do something later.
Interesting.
So it's been a lot more effective. We have practices that are getting 5, 10 Yelp reviews a week and 15 or 20 new Google reviews a month.
Wow.
Because they're just doing it while the patient's in the practice. And they just have to ask. I recommend that they identify in the morning the 3 or 4 kind of alpha audience guys that are coming in and say, Joan, you've been a patient for a long time, and we love you and we know you love us, and we're just so happy you're our patient. We're trying to build our business by improving our reviews online.
Right.
Would you consider writing us a little Google or Yelp review? 99 times out of 100, they say, I'd love to. So you send them the little link, they sit there for 2 minutes while they're waiting to get numb or whatever they're doing, and they just write you a nice review.
Yeah.
And if they don't write a good review, then it gets archived on a place where it doesn't get published there, so that you can review it, because the feedback is important. If somebody's not happy, you just don't want that being published.
I guess the other option is you have them write the review and you put the topical in, and then you read it real quick, and if it's bad, then you make sure they feel the injection.
I like that.
Yeah.
He didn't say that.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking ahead.
You're going to
Thinking ahead. No way. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. I'm going to spread. It's kind of interesting that, dentists traditionally are afraid to ask for things, in the chair.
I know.
And dentists don't like to talk about it, and team members use it a little better, but that fits right in what you just said about asking the patient. My favorite quote is a Wayne Gretzky quote that he says, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
I love that.
Yeah, I mean, the goalie doesn't come in and grab the puck and throw it in the net and say, oh, the great one scored on me.
That's right.
And I think just asking your patients, and they're the ones that you feel comfortable enough that you're not going to ask a patient that is begruntled and doesn't like you anyway.
Or a brand new patient who you don't really know yet, and they don't really know you.
Mm-hmm.
But every practice can identify those couple of people each day. And I think it's if my dentist said to me, Jack, I don't ask every person that comes through the door to write a review, because I don't feel close enough I feel uncomfortable asking them.
Right.
But we've been friends for a long time, and you've been part of my practice for a long time. Would you consider it'll take you 5 minutes, just do that for me? I mean, if you ask it in that way, nobody says no.
Why would you say no?
And they don't feel put on like you're trying to twist their arm or anything.
Yeah.
It's
and it's easy. It's easy there, because I think the difficulty, your personality is probably like mine. I'm an A-type personality. If you said, I'm going to send you a link and it'll be in a week, it's like, dude, it's not going to happen, honestly.
Right.
As much as I love you, I'd rather say, can you just write it and put my name underneath it? That's just who I am.
It's true.
We talked about a lot of things, and I know you have an e-book or a book that you have 5 things every dental practice should know about social media or how to get new patients in social. So I don't know if we've addressed those 5 yet. But let's talk a little bit about that.
Let me list them real quick, and if anybody, that ebook is really good for a practice that's just getting started in social media. If a practice is kind of well on its way, it may not be as applicable, but if a practice is just starting to open accounts, or just has had accounts but has never really felt like they know how to use them.
Right.
People can download that from our site. It's
so you just go to your site and you go.
Yeah, it's like a 30-page ebook.
Oh,
You just
okay.
download as a PDF and can read it.
That's free?
Yep,
Oh,
it's
nice.
free. So those 5 things are our social media marketing starts inside your practice, not online.
Okay.
Number 2 is participation. You've
Okay.
got to get your team to participate in some way. Number 3 is content, and we talked a little bit about content, what
Right.
makes for good content. Number 4 is tools. So tools are important, but always secondary, is what I always say.
Now, what do you mean by tools?
Facebook, LinkedIn,
Oh, okay.
blogging,
Okay.
website. And I think what happens is practices that don't first think right about this and get the mindset right, it doesn't matter what the tools are,
Yeah.
it's not going to work.
Okay.
So I always say tools are important, but always secondary to thinking about marketing in the right way.
Okay.
And then finally, the 5th thing is consistency. And
Okay.
we've talked a little bit about
Yeah.
that importance.
And we see, again, I see this where you go on a Facebook and they'll write every week for 4 months, and then 3 years later they put a post.
That's
and,
right.
It's like,
That's right.
really? Are they even paying attention?
That's
Or
right.
you go on a Facebook, and I'm going to use Facebook because I do on Facebook,
Yeah.
where they haven't added anything to their site since 2012,
Mhm.
and it's like, really? Are they even paying attention?
Yeah.
And I think that's a problem.
Another-
I would envision that as a problem.
It is a problem because people, if you're not consistent, people just lose interest. They absolutely do. One of the biggest problems with Facebook, and most practices will know this when I say this because it's been such a big deal, but as of about the 1st of this year, Facebook has changed the way content is filtered in such a way that if you had 100 followers on Facebook for your practice, before January of this year, typically 15 to 40% of those fans would see your content. Facebook has moved to a pay-to-play model, big time, in the last
Okay.
6 months. Now, typically, you'll only 1 to 3 or 4% of your fans will see your content unless you boost that
Yeah.
content.
I've seen that.
Boosting is super powerful, and it's not expensive. It's just you've got to start thinking that way, which is Facebook built a network that has 6 billion people in it, and now it's time for them to make money.
Right.
And so for $5, you can actually go back and reach what you used to be able to reach, which is 30-40% of your audience, if you just boost the posts. You want to make sure the content's good because you don't want to
Right.
boost stuff that's
Yeah.
crappy.
Right.
But if you have good content and you spend a couple of bucks boosting it, your fans will see it and they'll share it. So
Okay.
that's been frustrating for a lot of
So would you
practices.
boost only recent? So if I did a post that I Toys for Tots, let's say
Mhm.
something that's good for the community,
Yeah.
a year and a half ago, would it be beneficial for me to go back that and boost a post that,
Yeah.
or just new posts?
I don't. I'm trying to think whether or not you can go back that far. I'm not the guy that handles this at my social practice. Blake would know the answer to that. I don't know if you can go back a year and a half
Okay.
and boost an
I
old
was
post.
just-
Maybe you can.
Yeah, I don't know.
I've never tried it.
I don't know. You've talked about all these awesome things that you should be putting on your Facebook. Let's talk a little bit about some things that should not be on your professional. I have some young team members, and they're young,
Yeah.
right, in their 20s, and they like to have a good
Sure.
time. They're partying. We had to write some rules. Even on their personal page, if you're going to Facebook friend one of my patients
Yeah.
on your personal side, there's going to be some rules now.
Yes.
Whether it be alcohol related, whether it be, whatever it is,
Yes.
right? Doing stupid things. But let's just talk about our business Facebook. So the Hornrbook Center for Dentistry.
Mm-hmm.
What posts could potentially hurt me?
I think, well, first, taking a little broader answer to that question, I think it's really important that a practice, when they get started on social media, is to have a little simple policy in place and make sure that everyone on the team understands what's appropriate and what isn't. Because you'd be surprised how many practices don't really think about that till it's a problem.
Yeah.
So there are lots of resources out there. If somebody has a question where to find them, just send me an email or whatever, and I'll send you some links. But there's lots of places you can
What's
get.
your email address, by the way?
Just jack@mysocialpractice.com.
Okay, Jack at MySocial, all one word. Okay.
Yeah, because there are free resources out there, little templates that you can then kind of modify,
Right.
put your name in and stuff, and at least go over with your team what's appropriate and what isn't. Obviously, you have to be careful about HIPAA compliance, and one of the most important things about that is never practice dentistry in any way online. That's kind of the general rule, and anything that refers to people's treatment or whatever, just don't talk about that. And make sure that you get a little initial form. So we have all of our clients have a stack of little cards in every treatment room and in every room in the practice. And if they ever take a photo with the patient, it's just a little one-sentence thing that says, you know, I don't mind you using my image on your social media. And they initial it, and you keep track of that. It's really important to ask permission. Going back to what you were asking, what's content that could hurt you? That's the first content. Anything that is related to treatment. We're so glad Joan came in and had 9 veneers put on, you know. I mean,
because you see that all the time.
Yeah, you see it, and no, that's not a good place to be.
So even if you get the signature?
Even if you have permission, I think there are plenty of ways to be effective with imagery like that and with posts like that without talking about the dentistry.
The treatment.
You talk about, we're so happy when Joan comes in to see us. She's one of our favorite people. That's all you have to say. You don't have to go into a lot of detail, right? Now, if they want to, I mean, they could repost it or they could share it, and if they want to write 9 paragraphs about their treatment, well, that's their stuff. But yeah, I'd recommend in practice don't do that. So that kind of content. I think any kind of content where you actually try to argue out a point with someone online can really hurt you. So anytime, if there's ever something that people are dissatisfied with or they have strong opinions about, even if they're not complaining, but they're expressing strong opinions about something political or whatever, I think it's always best to acknowledge, say thank you for your comment, but don't engage at that level online. Take the conversation offline if you want. Say, hey, give me a call, John. I'd love to visit with you about it. And if you start debating online, you open yourself.
You never win.
You never win. Yeah, you really don't. And everybody else sees that, and then everybody else piles in. It just, you never know where that's going to go. That kind of stuff. So.
Well, good. We're going to wrap up, but I do want to kind of end. So, because we have listeners of all demographics, small towns, big towns, new practitioners. So, is there any information? So, let's say someone that's been in practice 20 years and wants to be more social media savage, versus a young practitioner, just like Lincoln Parker, who you work with. Right? He's doing unbelievably. He was in our first podcast. And he's doing unbelievably well, and he's young. He's 30 years old and using social media like crazy. I mean, 50 new patients a month, which is crazy. So what information, different information, would you give me as a 30-year-old opening a practice versus me as a 50-year-old saying, I need to boost this, Jack?
You know, I think the initial thought is that the strategy or the mindset would be different. But I think even young doctors who grew up with the internet and grew up with social media don't have, they think of social media in the way that they've always used social media, which is not as a marketing tool in a dental practice. So I don't know that even young doctors who are super savvy would have any different goals or objectives or strategies than a doctor who isn't familiar with social media at all. The only thing that might be different is that in the younger doctor's case, they may want to have more hands-on than maybe an older doctor who just doesn't really want to deal with it. In which case, they just need to have a couple of people that they can count on to take care of it inside the practice. They don't have to do it all. But it does need boots on the ground. You can't think that just because you don't want to do it, that somehow you're going to outsource it to someone in some other state who's going to figure out how to warm up to your patients. It needs to be someone in the practice. So if you don't do it yourself, find someone in the practice that can kind of champion it. Good.
Anything else you want to share? Anything that I didn't address? Again, we covered so much. I wish this was an hour. We're going to have you back for sure. Is anything else that?
No, I think those are the main things. I really think if practices will just remember those 3 main points, which is participate. Great social media does not start on the internet, which is counterintuitive. But it starts inside the practice. I mean, how many businesses have a captive audience that walks through their door and they're sitting there and you have this great personal... I mean, there aren't that many businesses that enjoy that kind of relationship. So participate. Number 2, use great content. So if you're trying to figure out what should we post, whether you have someone like us help you do that or not, even if you're doing it on your own, think about those 5 or 6 things that I said. Does this engage? Does it strengthen relationships? Does it improve the cloud of what we're doing? Those 4 or 5, 6 things that I mentioned. Great content has 1 or more of those kinds of characteristics. So number 2 is content. Participate is 1. Great content is number 2. Number 3 is be consistent. Whatever you need to do, don't start down the road and then, well, if we kind of start, can't think of any ideas, we'll stop, because really it's almost better not to start if you can't at least keep it consistent.
Right.
And it doesn't mean it has to consume all your time if you have the right mindset.
Right.
It doesn't need to take all your time.
Okay.
So.
Let me ask you one more question.
Yeah.
Because this is fascinating to me as a marketer and what we're doing at Keating now with all this and just seeing how all
you're
this
doing
works.
some amazing things here. All the stuff you've shown me this morning that you're doing online, it's fantastic.
Oh, good. Thanks for saying that.
When I'm around a lot of practices and get to talk to practices, they are hungry for the kind of content that you and Keating are delivering.
Oh, thanks.
I mean,
Thanks
I can see why you're enjoying so much success with it.
And I'm
It's
having
awesome.
fun with it, which
I
is
can
important.
tell.
And you know me a long time. I
Yeah.
always have a lot of energy, and I'm always optimistic about everything. But this has
Yeah.
been a lot of fun.
That's neat.
So the thing we didn't talk about, and we'll do it very briefly as
Yeah.
we wrap up, is the whole website. All right, so we got social media. Those are really two different things, right? My Facebook, my Instagram, my Twitter, my LinkedIn is one thing, and my website is another. Are they? How much interlinking is between the two,
Yeah.
and how consistent? I mean, where does that fall in?
I think that the main thing to remember about that is in days gone by, websites could really be more independent. Because again, to make a website effective, you weren't publishing a lot of fresh content there. If you had some keyword optimized pages that listed Invisalign 27 times,
Right.
then you felt like your site was fine.
Right.
But those two things are really coming together into what needs to be kind of a comprehensive digital strategy, which is that your social media content, in particular, say a blog post that's published on your website and then shared out to your social channels, really drives traffic back. In fact, there was a recent search metrics survey about the correlation between social media and SEO that listed 7 of the top 10 correlation factors related to social media. And it's not because Google doesn't care how many likes you have on your Facebook page. You could have 100,000 or 100, and that's not going to give you any more search love. But people clicking on your content, Google notices every what they call social signal, which is a like, a share, how long you stay on the pages. I mean, all that stuff is stuff that Google watches. And so if your content is engaging and people are clicking on it and sharing it, all it's doing is creating more social signals for Google, and it's driving traffic back to your website. So
Okay.
website is a hub. These channels, or social channels, are great places to distribute content and to publish original content, both of which drive traffic back to the site.
Okay.
So they're no longer independent
Okay.
discussions. There's no kind of bolt-on social strategy to a website strategy. They're really integrated today.
Okay. And which I know there's a lot of listeners here, and I know that because we went back and looked at a lot of doctors' websites. There's a lot of really crummy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're just generic
Yep.
websites, and
Yep.
if you create this big social media that's all about your brand and your culture and all this cool stuff, and you go back to a site that it's all stock pictures and it looks like
That's
you
right.
bought it at Walmart or
That's
something,
right.
that's a problem.
Not only is it a problem in terms of the brand, but it's a problem in terms of Google's ability to crawl the site. It won't load quickly anymore if it's a 20-year-old site or whatever. It won't load well. It won't look good on a phone. I mean, there's a lot of very practical reasons beyond branding
Right.
on why those kind of sites really ought to be looked at and redone.
Yeah.
There's another, if we have one more second.
We have
There's-
another second, absolutely. We
There's
do.
this
This is awesome.
There's another
I
group.
actually want 20 more minutes.
When you think about websites, there's the group that you just mentioned, which are all those old legacy sites that we just talked about. And then there's the new responsive sites that are great. There's sort of this big middle ground of people that maybe 5 or 8 or 10 years ago spent some money putting together a pretty decent site. One of the hard things that's hard to swallow because of the investment you've made in a
Right.
site like that is that if you have had some SEO help with that, in some cases they have built that site based on what Google used to believe.
Right,
Which is,
okay.
I mean, you've probably heard of things like link farms, like
Right.
building 10,000 sites in India with links back, trying to fool Google and
Oh,
thinking there's
really?
more traffic to your site than what there really is. A lot of those sites have a lot of baggage attached to them.
Okay.
today Google comes and says, you know what, we don't like that anymore because we're smart enough that we can see what real content is and what phony content is. So we're going to start penalizing you. So here a guy's invested years and tons of money to get this to try to get it to be found with Google, and now they're saying, not only do we not like it, we might start penalizing you. That's been frustrating.
Oh, yeah.
In some cases, those sites can be cleaned up. It's a little expensive to clean them up. In some cases, we're finding lots of practices just start over. It's just almost better to start over, doing it the way Google wants to do it, than to try to repair some of those sites. So, yeah, websites are all over the map. And
it is. So, you know, that hits home for me because about 12, 15 years ago, I had like the site. You know, the pictures were good because I actually took slides, because this is pre-digital, took slides, scanned them in a high resolution where all these before and afters look like fuzzy crap, right? Where mine were great, right? And I thought, this is a great site, you know? Because there's no video, because there was, you know, no...
Well, it was a great site for that time period. It was an amazing site.
And so we kept, and every time, you know, my team members would say, you know, we need a new site. And I think, do I want to spend another, 10 to 20 grand on this?
Sure.
And we did this 2.5 years ago. I'll tell you, it's the best investment we ever made. And it was a big investment. You know, it was $20-some-odd thousand. And I'll tell you that we've had more action on our site, big cases, good patients, finding us, and all we did was invest a little bit of money. But still, you're absolutely right. We need that.
Yeah, it's an important foundation to any digital marketing strategy.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, this has been great.
Thanks, Dave.
Really, Graham. I so appreciate you coming down here, and I know that the listeners are on the edge of their seats saying, "Crap, I'm not doing that," or I am doing that for the bad things.
Don't be overwhelmed. Don't be overwhelmed.
Well, you have a great resource here in Jack and his company, mysocialpractice.com, and you know, whether you invest in his expertise or use some of the free tools they have. I mean, the blogs are awesome. You know, I listened to two or three of them this morning. Your book. That
we have a lot of content that if you want to do all these things yourself, we try to give you the tools to understand and to do it. Okay. If you want our help, we have some great programs to help you. So and anyone that has questions, just jack@mysocialpractice.com. I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has.
You know, it still amazes me how people don't use quote unquote coaches for all things. You know, they have a coach golf. You know, they coach for swimming, and you know, Little League, you have coaches, and you have a practice management consultant that comes in, and you have dental educators, mentors like me that teach you how to do veneers. And it's like, oh, what are we gonna do with social media? Well, Susie has a Facebook account. Let her do it, because she has 400 friends. So she's our new expert. You know. And I think you being your coach, you're a coach on social media, which can break or make, I think, a practice. So.
Well, we have a good time. Yeah,
good. Again, thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up. I hope you enjoyed this. I did. You know, I always say this is one of my favorite, but this is my favorite. No offense to the other ones. It was great. And he's real involved with Crown Council, which is giving back to dentistry, and we have a lot of mutual friends, so this has been fun. Yeah. So check out our other podcasts. If this is your first experience with us, you go to DentalUp, all one word, .xyz. We're doing some fun things. And come visit us out in Irvine. We're about 5 minutes from Disneyland. Here at KeatingDentalArts.com is our website, or Keating Dental Arts. Google us, because I think we have good SEO.
I bet you show up great.
And hopefully you'll come visit us soon. Looking forward to it.
Okay.